Africa is home to more wild animals than any other continent. 54 countries, each with at least one animal that defines it, through culture, history, biology, or sheer improbability. This ranking covers all of them, and is evaluated on 3 criteria: how unique the animal is to that country, how significant it is to the people there, and how widely recognized the pairing is worldwide. This is one of the most contested territories on Earth. No universally recognized government, almost no permanent population, and in a place where almost nothing survives, one animal does. The camel doesn't just help people live here, it is the reason living here is possible at all. Transport, milk, meat, trade, everything. This pairing ranks last, not because the camel is unimpressive, but because nearly every country across North Africa and the Middle East tells the same story. When everyone claims the same icon, no one truly owns it. Same animal, different country, different meaning. Eritrea became independent in 1993, one of Africa's newest nations, still building everything from the ground up. In the lowland and desert interior, before roads reached these communities, camels carried everything. Here's something worth knowing. Camel milk typically contains more vitamin C than cow milk. In remote communities with no fresh produce, that isn't a trivia fact. That's a nutritional lifeline. And in some villages today, a family's wealth is still counted not in money, but in camels. Eritrea ranks above Western Sahara because the cultural thread is slightly older and runs deeper, but the animal is still shared. Same animal, this time ceremony. More than half of Chad is pure Sahara, and every year in the northern regions, something happens that outsiders rarely witness. Families spend months training their animals. The races carry real stakes: honor, reputation, status. Winning means something that goes beyond the finish line. Chad also sits along the ancient trans-Saharan routes where camels move salt, gold, and goods across the desert for centuries. This is a country that built its identity around the camel, but so do its neighbors, and the ranking reflects that. Same animal, this time industry. Africa's 3rd largest country, desert in the north, green in the south, and the Nile cuts through the middle. Sudan's connection to the camel isn't just cultural, it's economic at a scale no other country on this list comes close to. The market in Omdurman, just outside Khartoum, is one of the largest camel markets in the world. Sudan exports camels in extremely large numbers annually, to Egypt, to neighboring countries, by truck, by road, by foot. That scale of trade gives Sudan something none of the other camel countries have. Not just a bond with the animal, a commercial infrastructure built entirely around it. That's enough to rank it here. Same animal, this time. The whole world knows about it. Tunisia is the smallest country in North Africa, blue Mediterranean in the north, pale Sahara in the south. Then George Lucas arrived. He needed an alien planet. He found one in the Tunisian desert. The desert sequences of Star Wars were filmed right here. Real camels, real dunes, real heat. Those locations still draw visitors from around the world today. Camel trekking has become one of Tunisia's largest tourist draws, partly because of a science fiction film made 4 decades ago. A sci-fi franchise turned a Tunisian camel into a global reference point. No other camel country on this list has that, and that's why Tunisia ranks first among them. Libya's most iconic animal no longer exists. Not endangered, not rare. Gone. The Barbary lion was one of the largest lion populations ever recorded. Bigger than East African lions. Bigger than Southern African lions. A dense, dark mane that ran across the neck and all the way down the belly. The Romans brought them to the arena. Cleopatra reportedly kept them. Ancient accounts treated them as the supreme animal, powerful enough to be worthy of kings and spectacle. And then hunting took them, over centuries, one by one, until the last confirmed wild Barbary lion in Libya was dead. A small number of possible descendants survive today in Moroccan zoos, but their genetic lineage remains uncertain. Libya ranks here not for what it has, but for what it lost, and the size of that loss. one of the thinnest countries on the map, barely 80 kilometers wide at the coast, squeezed between Ghana and Benin. In its rivers, lakes, and coastal waters lives an animal most people have never heard of, the West African manatee, up to 3 meters long, almost silent, and related to the elephant, both descended from the same ancestor millions of years ago. You would not guess it from looking at one, but the biology is clear. Around Lake Togo, communities have protected this animal for generations. Harming one isn't just a legal problem, it is a cultural violation. Their numbers are falling, but the reverence holds. Almost nobody visits this country. Tiny, forested, a fractured coastline of islands, rivers, and mangroves. But something happens in these islands that researchers have documented almost nowhere else on the planet. Hippopotamuses are freshwater animals. They have always been freshwater animals. They still need calm water to keep their skin from drying out. Extended exposure to salt water creates stress their bodies aren't adapted for. And yet, in the Baijagos, hippos regularly cross saltwater channels between islands. They swim through the sea to move from one freshwater source to the next. This isn't full saltwater adaptation. They still depend on freshwater on each island, but the behavior itself, swimming through open ocean, is documented almost nowhere else. Researchers travel specifically to understand how and why they do it. Nobody fully understands it yet. One of Africa's smallest countries, also one of its last absolute monarchies. Here, the elephant isn't just a national symbol, it's a royal title. The Queen Mother is called the Great She-Elephant. Power, wisdom, stability, that is what the title is meant to convey. Elephants were nearly eliminated in Eswatini through hunting. Conservation programs rebuilt the herds. Helene Royal National Park went from almost empty to supporting a full population. The animal came back, and the meaning it carries came back with it. That depth, royal, cultural, and ecological, is why this pairing ranks where it does. Lake Tanganyika is one of the deepest lakes in the world, and Burundi sits right on its edge. The hippo has been part of Burundian life for a very long time. Folk songs, oral stories, communal warnings passed between generations. Because here, the hippo isn't just a neighbor, it's a genuine threat. Most people underestimate them. They look slow. They run faster than most humans. Their jaws can split a wooden boat in half. They are responsible for more human deaths in Africa than almost any other large animal. Burundi ranks here, not higher, because hippos are distributed across most of sub-Saharan Africa. They don't belong to this country alone, but the communities along this lake have lived alongside them for generations, and they know exactly what that cost. Most people are surprised this country exists. Split in two, a thin strip of mainland and one island sitting alone in the Gulf of Guinea. That island is called Bioko. It has been isolated from the African mainland long enough that entirely distinct wildlife evolved there. The Preuss's red colobus is found almost nowhere else, one of Africa's most endangered primates. Bioko is one of its last strongholds. On the mainland, western lowland gorillas move through dense rainforest, facing pressure from hunting and deforestation, closing in from both sides. Equatorial Guinea receives almost no international attention for its wildlife, but what it contains is genuinely significant. The Central African Republic is one of the most remote countries on the continent. Dense rainforest, almost no paved roads, largely inaccessible. But deep in the southwest, there is a place called Dzanga Bai, a natural clearing in the forest. Mineral-rich water rises from the ground here, and every day, they come. Forest elephants, dozens at a time, sometimes more than 100 in the same clearing. Forest elephants are not the same species as savanna elephants. Smaller body, straighter tusks, hairier skin. Formerly recognized as a distinct species in the early 21st century, they are critically endangered. And this one clearing in one of the least visited countries in Africa is among the last places where they still gather like this. Ghana is one of West Africa's most recognized countries. Stable, historically significant, known internationally for gold, cocoa, and culture. On its coat of arms is a bird of prey, the tawny eagle, large, powerful in flight, built for open savanna skies. It flanks the national shield on both sides, wings open, medals around the neck, a symbol of strength and clear vision. For wildlife, Mole National Park in the north is Ghana's primary stage. Elephants at waterholes, baboons on termite mounds, antelope moving through dry season grass. Not the big Congo, the other one. Smaller, less famous, sitting on the Atlantic coast of Central Africa. Its forests are part of the second largest tropical rainforest on Earth, second only to the Amazon. Ozala-Kokwa National Park in the north is considered one of Africa's best locations to observe habituated western lowland gorillas, animals that have grown accustomed to human presence and let researchers sit with them without retreating. This is not a zoo. This is a wild animal choosing not to move. The Republic of Congo ranks here because its key species, gorillas, forest elephants, chimpanzees, are shared across the entire Congo Basin. Remarkable animals, but not exclusively theirs. Lake Malawi contains more freshwater fish species than any other lake on Earth. That alone would be enough for most countries. But Malawi's national animal isn't a fish, it's the nyala. And if you've never seen one up close, you might genuinely not realize the male and female are the same species. The male, dark, shaggy-coated, spiral-horned. The female, reddish-brown, hornless, a third smaller. They look like two different animals. The nyala was nearly eliminated in Malawi. Then, Majeti Wildlife Reserve launched a full reintroduction program, going from 0 large mammals to a complete Big Five population. The nyala came back. So did everything around it. Over 2,500 kilometers of Indian Ocean shoreline, one of the longest coastlines in Africa. And somewhere in that ocean, in the waters of the Bazaruto archipelago, lives an animal most people have never seen in the wild. The dugong, a large marine mammal, related to the manatee. It feeds entirely on seagrass, grazing the ocean floor the way cattle graze a field. Sailors used to see them surfacing in the distance and believed they were seeing something else entirely. Historians believe dugongs are one of the genuine origins of mermaid mythology. The silhouette, at distance, was convincing enough to fool people for centuries. Today, the Bazaruto population is estimated at only a few hundred individuals, one of the most urgent marine conservation situations on the continent. Before Benin existed as a country, this territory was home to one of the most powerful kingdoms in West Africa, the Kingdom of Dahomey, military, organized, feared, and at the center of everything, the leopard. The king didn't just respect the leopard, the king was the leopard. That was the title. That was the claim. Warriors wore leopard skins. Leopard imagery covered palace walls, textiles, and ceremonies. Every surface, every rank, and the Agoji, the elite all-female warrior unit who served as the king's personal guard, wore the leopard as part of their identity. Wild leopards still inhabit Penjari National Park in the north today. The leopard here isn't just an animal, it is an entire political history, still walking. Since 1976, one group of chimpanzees in southeastern Guinea has been under continuous scientific study, nearly 50 years. Same forest, same community. This is what the researchers found. They use rocks as tools, not instinct, not an accident. Learned behavior, passed down through generations the way skills are passed down in human communities. They use sticks to extract algae from water, and when a member of the group dies, mothers have been observed carrying the body of a deceased infant for days, sometimes weeks, moving through the forest as if waiting for something to change. Chimpanzees share 98.7% of their DNA with humans. That number is easy to say out loud, much harder to sit with. Somalia occupies the eastern tip of the continent, the Horn of Africa, surrounded on 3 sides by ocean. The leopard is on the national coat of arms, 2 of them. For generations of Somali warriors, the leopard represented something precise: speed without announcement, survival without support. the capacity to endure completely alone. In the Kalamado Mountains of northern Somalia, one of the most biologically isolated ranges on the continent, leopards still move through terrain that also holds plant and animal species found nowhere else on Earth. The leopard and Somali identity have moved together across centuries. That thread doesn't break easily. The world's youngest country, independent since 2011, and in its wetlands, something has been happening for thousands of years that almost no one outside of specialist wildlife circles knows about. Every year, more than 1 million animals migrate across the Sud wetlands. This migration rivals the wildebeest migration in Kenya and Tanzania in sheer scale, and in raw animal numbers, some estimates suggest it may rival or even exceed it. It receives a fraction of the coverage. South Sudan also holds the world's largest population of Nile lechwe antelope. And then there's the shoebill, over 1 meter tall, pale gray, a bill shaped like a wooden clog. It stands in the shallows and does not move, for hours, waiting for a lungfish to surface. There is nothing else quite like it. South Sudan's wildlife is some of the most significant, and least known, on the continent. Landlocked country, no coast, but it has the Zambezi, and it has the African fish eagle. This is Zambia's national bird. Most people have heard its call without knowing its name. That high, sustained, yelping cry, used in nearly every African wildlife documentary ever made. That sound, more than any other, has become the sound of the continent. The call is so widely used that producers reach for it automatically. It has appeared in hundreds of wildlife productions across decades. It hunts from a perch above water, drops, hits the surface feet first, rises with a fish in its talons, sometimes prey nearly as heavy as itself. The Luangwa Valley, deep inside Zambia, is where the walking safari was invented. Guides leading guests on foot through the bush, no vehicle between them and the animals. That tradition started here and never stopped. Zimbabwe's official national animal is the sable antelope, long, scimitar-curved horns, one of the most dramatic silhouettes in Africa. But in 2015, a lion put Zimbabwe at the center of the world's attention. His name was Cecil. Cecil was illegally killed by a trophy hunter outside Hwange National Park. The global reaction was immediate and forceful. It accelerated scrutiny of trophy hunting regulations and conservation law across multiple countries. Hwange National Park, where Cecil lived, holds one of the largest elephant concentrations in Africa, and Mana Pools on the Zambezi is known for something that should not be possible: elephants that stand on their hind legs to reach high branches. Learned here, passed down here, documented in only a handful of places on Earth. This is one of them. The name means land of upright people, and the symbol of power here has never been a wild animal. It's a horse, a white one. For centuries, the Mossi rulers, called Naba, have appeared on horseback in ceremony, not as transport, as authority. In the south, in the Pony region, hippos in sacred rivers are protected by community belief. Harming one isn't treated as a legal matter, it is treated as a cause of communal misfortune. And across Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, a population of elephants completes one of the last long-distance migrations in West Africa, over 500 kilometers every year, following seasonal water across 3 countries. Africa's most populous country, over 200 million people, the continent's largest economy, and above everything on the national coat of arms, an eagle, not an officially designated national animal, but one of the country's most recognized symbols. Nigeria is one of the last places in West Africa where African wild dogs, lions, Kordofan giraffes, and Prusa's red colobus monkeys still share the same landscape. All of them under pressure, all of them still there. Yankari National Park draws elephant herds every dry season to Wiki Warm Springs, naturally heated water rising from the ground, warm enough to see the difference at the surface. And in the southeastern forests, fewer than 300 cross-river gorillas remain. Not across Africa. Globally, one of the most endangered great apes on Earth, living in Nigeria. Every other country on this list can point to one dominant ecosystem: Cameroon cannot. Desert in the north, savanna in the center, rainforest in the south, Atlantic coast in the west. In the southern rainforests, western lowland gorillas share territory with forest elephants, bongo antelopes, and the mandrill. The mandrill is the world's largest monkey. A male's face carries vivid red and blue coloration that Charles Darwin described as one of the most striking color displays in the entire animal kingdom. Cameroon's ecological range makes it impossible to settle on a single animal. That is both its richness and the reason it ranks here. Its rainforests are among the most biodiverse in West Africa, and somewhere in those forests, an animal that European explorers refused to believe existed, the pygmy hippopotamus, about the size of a large pig, nocturnal, more terrestrial than its massive relative. West African communities had known about it for generations before Western science formally documented it. The explorers called the accounts local legend. They were wrong. Liberia is the last major refuge for this animal. Its forests are being cut, but the pygmy hippo is still here, for now. The Niger River supports a large hippo population in Mali's inland delta, but the more unusual story is in the Gourma, in the Sahel, in the semi-desert, where a population of elephants has been tracked completing a circular migration of over 500 kilometers. Considered one of the longest known elephant migration routes in Africa. These elephants look different from typical savanna elephants. Taller, longer-legged, pale from the dust. They evolved in a landscape that gives almost nothing, and they have learned to take what it offers. Lope National Park holds some of the highest densities of forest elephants and western gorillas anywhere on the continent. Gabon's Atlantic coastline is one of the world's most significant nesting sites for leatherback sea turtles. Hundreds of turtles come ashore every year. Gabon has banned commercial shark fishing and substantially expanded its marine protected areas. But it's the most iconic species. The forest elephant, the western gorilla, the leatherback, are shared across the Congo Basin. Gabon is not the only home, just one of the best ones. That's countries 54 through 27, the first half of the ranking. Part 2 covers the top 27. That's where the pairings get truly exclusive, where the animal and the country are so locked together that you can't think of one without the other. Which country surprised you most? Leave it in the comments. And if you made it this far, you already see Africa differently.